Hey friends, Bruce Naylor, your boomer consumer. On this channel, I review vintage hi-fi, some new hi-fi, digital, analog, etc. And this video is all about the KEF or KEF Q150 bookshelf speakers. Now, as a disclaimer, I paid for these with my own funds. No one's reviewed this video prior to posting, and all opinions are my own. Whew, got that out of the way. Hey, before I get started on this, I just want to share one thing with you. I have tried using teleprompters. I just don't care for them. It doesn't feel natural to me. And so if you hear some ums and some ahs, that's just the way it is. All right. But I'm going to talk to you just like I was talking to my best friend about these. Now, I own these, so I'm not beholden to anybody to give these a good review, bad review, whatever. All right. I'm just going to give you my opinion of these bookshelf speakers. Now, I've owned them for several months. They have been selling for $300 on Amazon. That's where I picked mine up from. You can get them at other sources, but they have a suggested retail price of $600. Before going any deeper into the video, they ain't worth $600, folks. They're just not. There's way better options out there. But let's talk about these a little bit. So once I got back into hi-fi after a very long hiatus, right? One of the speakers I heard so much about was the KEF LS50s. And now I believe they're called the LS50 Meta. And I think whether they're overhyped, I really don't know. I've never heard a KEF speaker in my life. So I stumbled across a video from Stereophile, and they were interviewing Jack Ockley-Brown. Now he is the head of acoustics for KEF. And I know this much, the LS50 Metas are selling for like $1,300 a pair. And these are selling for $300. But when you watch that video, you realize one thing, that you're more than likely getting 80, 90% of the sound of the LS50 Metas for 25% of the price. Yes, you heard that right. And I've got a link to that interview down in the description below. Now, I've made myself some notes so I don't forget to cover different key points of this video. So if I look down, please forgive me. I just don't feel comfortable with the teleprompter. Now, getting back to the Q150s, these are the entry level into the KEF bookshelf speaker line with their Unidriver or UniQ driver. And it's just a very interesting little speaker. When you look at the LS50, it's a very unusual looking speaker for sure, with that coaxial driver right in the center of the cabinet. And the Q150 does the same exact thing. Now these again are available for $300 a pair. For that price, I think they're definitely worth the money. They're available in a walnut finish, a black finish, and a white finish. I wanted the white, and everybody was sold out of the white. But you know what? I got it in walnut instead. And now I'm glad I did, because I think over time I would probably get tired of the white. And with my vintage hi-fi that I'm using it with right now, a Yamaha CR820, it just looks beautiful together. Not that I'm going to be using them forever with that, but we'll get into that in just a minute. Now let's talk about the construction. So these speakers weigh approximately about 11 pounds. I believe they're mostly MDF with a vinyl wrap. The vinyl wrap looks okay. It's not fantastic. They didn't do a bad job. For the price range for the $300, yeah, I'd say they did a reasonably good job. So it's not a veneer on there. And you have this, it is a two-way bass reflex speaker, right? So you have a port in the back, and when you get the speakers, it comes with a little plug that you can put back in there, but really KEF wants you to keep them a little bit further away from the wall. And mine are probably about 2.5 feet from the front wall. So they're about that far away. So this UniQ driver, right, you have a 1-inch aluminum tweeter, and then you have this 5.25-inch, what I call a mid-bass driver. It's not full range, right? So you have those working together, and the idea, as I understand it, is for the time alignment so that the high frequencies arrive at the same time as the low frequencies. That's the way I understand it. If I'm wrong, hey, let me know in the comments down below. But I believe that's kind of the idea behind it. The UniQ driver So it has the aluminum tweeter. Now, let's talk about frequency response. Rated at 51 hertz to 28 kilohertz. Let me tell you right off the bat, if you want any kind of appreciable bass at all, I mean, it does put out some decent sounding bass for what it is. These are, let me just say that these are a near field speaker, in my opinion. These are not meant for a large room. Now, a small room like my office here, my little home studio, perfect size for that. Perfect size. Again, they weigh about 11 pounds, and the physical dimensions are about 12 inches tall, 7 inches wide, and about 11 inches deep. So they're about as deep as they are tall. With that in mind, again, that frequency response, 51 to 28 kilohertz, you're going to need a sub if you want any substantial bass. Just factor in the price of a subwoofer with these if you want appreciable bass. They do an okay job, right? Depending on the music that you're playing, but yeah, really, you need a subwoofer with these. Can you get away without one? Of course you can. Right now, I've actually got them running without a sub. They sound okay. Now, the sensitivity is not that great on these. It's 86 dB. But I used 3 different amps. I used a NAD 316V B2. V2, yeah, right. 316B V2. Boy, I love these names they come up with. So, yeah, use that amp, a Yamaha CR620, CR680, a Marantz 2230, and a Pioneer SX D7000. Now, my vintage audio gear has generally all been restored, and it's got new caps, transistors, and all that. So these are all within factory spec and great sounding gear. Great sounding gear. Okay? The NAD isn't that particularly powerful, but these speakers got plenty loud, even at 86 dB sensitivity. So I don't think, unless you're trying to do, a small little tube amp or something, I think, 30 watts, something like that, or higher is going to do you just fine. Let me tell you what I didn't care for about these. I don't like the stupid looking KEF thing on the top, this little plastic KEF logo. I don't get that. I don't think it looks good, but I can live with it, right? You kind of live with it, So if you want that KEF sound, I think that's, these are kind of engineered to that British sound, then here you go. You got to put up with that. So I didn't care for that. Didn't care for the fact they did not include a speaker grill, which I think you have to pay extra for a speaker cover for that. So be careful if you got little kids around. Let's talk a little bit about the kind of music I listen to. Man, I just have so many diverse interests in music. But I guess my favorite genre has been, for the last several months, jazz vocalists, particularly female jazz vocalists, Diana Krall, Nora Jones, Lady Blackbird, just to name a few. So I've listened to a lot of their stuff, but I also like classic rock. Been getting into some Led Zeppelin, AC/DC. These are, I think, more geared towards vocals because I think the mid-range is really outstanding on these. So, voice just sounds incredibly good on these. But that being said, and if you ask me, well, how do these compare to this speaker, that speaker, this speaker? I can't really tell you. All I can do is review things as they stand on their own, because I've never heard another pair of KEF speakers before, ever. Clips, yes. It's not really fair to compare these to like my RP600Ms. But I can tell you this much: if these aren't nowhere as dynamic sounding as the Klipsch speakers, like my 51Ms, my 600Ms, nowhere near as dynamic sounding. I would say, to describe these in one word, would be relaxed. These are kind of a little bit warm sounding speaker, not very forward. They're not going to be fatiguing or tiring to listen to. I listen, and I let these break in for weeks, just playing background music, 8-12 hours a day, every day of the week. So I say they're relaxed. I say they're a little bit on a warm sound. They're not extremely bright, which is, I think, probably a good thing especially if you're going to use them for background music all day long. I think they're perfect for that scenario. They don't, the bass that it does have is solid, not super punchy, Again, I highly recommend a sub if you're going to go with these and you're going to listen, especially to like classic rock, and you want that hit, that punch of the bass. It's just not there with these, and they can't really do that with a 5 1/4 inch mid bass driver, right? Now let's get back to what Ockley was saying. Jack Ockley Brown was saying. He's head of acoustics for KEF, and he made these so his friends who couldn't afford the LS50s had something that would sound mostly the same for a much lower price. And the reason for that is because essentially it's the same cabinet size as the LS50s, same size driver. Where you get a difference, according to Jack, is more in the materials that are used to build the cabinet and different creative things you can do with that, more so maybe than the drivers itself. I'm not a speaker designer. I can't tell you whether how accurate that statement is or not. The link to his interview is down below. Anything else I want to say about these? Oh, yes. The big selling point of these speakers for a lot of people is how well they image. Mwah, fantastic. They are really, really good at imaging. Again, these are more of a near field type of speaker. You're going to have them relatively close to you. You're going to be using them in a smaller environment. That's what these are made for. You don't want to use these in a big room. This is not going to work. It's just not going to work in the big room. But if you keep them near field, the imaging is fantastic. What do I mean by imaging? I mean the ability to pick out the players in the band. You know, there's the bass guitar there. There's the drums there. There's vocalists over there. You know, keyboards over there, piano, etc. What about soundstage? How very three-dimensional. I couldn't be more pleased when it comes to that. But again, you got to be near field. Once you get further away from the Q150s, it all starts to kind of collapse. But I expect that on a affordable bookshelf speaker. These, I think, are made, again, to bring out music with a lot of vocals, a lot of mids. That's where these things really shine. So that, all in all, I think for 300 bucks, yeah, they're worth the money, especially if you really want to experiment with that KEF sound. $600? Absolutely not. So there's better ways you can spend your money than that. So that's it. That is my review of the KEF Q150s. These are the entry to the KEF bookshelf speaker line, the Q series with the Uni-Q driver. Okay, there you go. Bruce Naylor, thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.